You know, one of the main questions I get is, what books would you recommend? And in this video, I'll share with you a few books that I've read that have been impactful for me. But before I do, I want to talk about what is even more impactful, what has been more impactful for me than reading books, than any video or any podcast, any type of information that I can gain, concepts that I can digest in my brain. It's living in practice. I think a lot of us that are on this spiritual journey, if you will, and I put quotations because life is spiritual. Whether we realize it or not, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So we're all on the spiritual journey in some way. Life is always giving us exactly what we need to evolve, exactly what we need to awaken to ourselves, to consciousness. And I think a lot of times we look for certain practices or certain concepts, ideas, techniques, whatever, to try and reach some enlightened state or try to achieve something. Could be manifesting, it could be personal growth or spiritual growth or reaching inner peace, anything. And I think that books and podcasts and videos and all of these things can be helpful. If I didn't think that they could be helpful, then I wouldn't have a YouTube channel. But I hope that, and if you've watched some of my other videos, you've seen and what my main teaching is, if you will, and it's coming back to yourself, living in practice. Because as I said, life will always give us exactly what we need to meet us where we're at on our own spiritual journey, to awaken within the dream, if you will. Because I think another reason we tend to seek out books or videos or teachers or anything like that is to find some sort of answer, that gain clarity within, find truth or meaning or purpose or something. And what I've come to realize is these methods of enhancing the brain, enhancing the mind, only scrape the surface. They provide a bit of inspiration or awareness in some way. Again, there's been books that I've found to be quite impactful in my life. But the work is done in the moment. And I think a lot of times we miss out on the real work, the real path to evolution, to expansion, ascension, whatever you want to call it, higher consciousness. And it's by using life as the school, as the teacher. Because as I said, life is always giving us the things that we need. If you're clear and you look at life through the spiritual lens, you always see that no matter where you are, there's the teacher, there's the reflection back to you, showing you back to you, wherever you are. It's meeting you where you're at. And I think a lot of times we miss out on the teachings that life has to offer because we attach to things, we resist things, we're too identified with our ego, our self-concept that tries to control life. And in living from that place, the only way we can try to break free of it is by adding more concepts. But that's all just adding to the bin that we can call your ego. Until we learn to do the work in the moment of regulating our nervous system, of not reacting to the things that irritate us or our triggers, but using our triggers, using our fears, using the things that that bother us in some way, cause some sort of inner disturbance, to alchemize that into consciousness, into expansion of awareness. It's the work, and it's what I've realized is the most meaningful work. It's self-mastery. It's conscious living. It's truly living. I've made another video on that about whether we're living or just surviving. And I think a lot of times we are surviving because we're living on survival mode. We're living from that dysregulated place that is constantly reacting to the irritations and or the triggers, or pushing things away, or trying to control everything. And I've talked about this in many videos. The first step is self-regulation through breath, through awareness, through self-observation. Self-observation is the way out. The way out of identifying with this cosmic dream that we're living in. The way out of suffering, the self-created turmoil and suffering that we create for ourselves by attaching to things, identifying with things, resisting things. So through self-observation, by just being with ourselves, watching ourselves, every moment, the reactions that arise, the thoughts that arise, by slowing down and being there with them, and not reacting to them, but rather pausing. This is the work of elevating consciousness through self-regulation. We can't possibly have a bigger container and capacity to experience life through awareness if we're dysregulated. And through dysregulation, we will continue to live through the same autopilot cycles and always need to be on this self-help hamster wheel of, I need another book, or I need another video, or I need something to always try to improve. Now, I'm not saying that we should stop reading or stop looking at videos or anything like that. I think that it's the intention behind it. If we think that the answers are going to be in something else that we are seeking, in my experience, it's just it's a distraction away from the answers that are already within us that we just maybe don't want to look at right now. We are the way. You are the way for you. I am the way for me, and whatever happens in my life is constantly teaching me. Life is like a chess game in that sense, between you and God. You make a decision based on what happens in your life, and then that's like you moving a chess piece, and then God will move a chess piece, and something will come into your life, some sort of circumstance or opportunity or person, or you'll lose something, or something will happen in life, and you'll have another opportunity to move another chess piece, make another move in the game of life. And a lot of times the moves that we make are reactive. And by not living from reactivity, by responding through consciousness, through awareness, we begin to burn off the karmic cycles, if you will, that comes our way through the chess pieces moved on our behalf. And I've realized that this is the real work in life, from moment to moment. It is life. It's right now in this moment. It's not in the past, and it's not in the future. Those two things only ever exist in our imagination. Life happens in this moment right now, with whatever you're dealing with. And the more that we can live from awareness through self-observation, the less attached we are to this dream state, this matrix. It doesn't mean that you push it away, like you're above it or something like that, that you're some enlightened being. Again, that's ego still. That's just a spiritual ego now. You're just slapping a different label on it. It's just observing without judgment, just being. This is consciousness. Consciousness doesn't judge, doesn't think it's better than something else or anything. The good and bad that we experience is just two sides of the same stick. That stick is consciousness. And the good things that happen lead into bad things, and the bad things that happen leading to good things. It's the pendulum of life. Awareness watches the whole thing unfold without grasping onto things or pushing things away. This is the spiritual path. This is the journey of awakening consciousness. Just observing, watching as the observer, not the ego. So this is the real work, the real impactful work that I've found. Again, books can be helpful. Teachers can be helpful. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that teacher could be anything. It could be a romantic relationship. It could be an animal, a dog, a pet that comes in that you decide to get. It could be, literally anything that happens. It doesn't have to be a book or a video or anything. If you keep your eyes open and look at life through that spiritual lens, you'll see that the teachers are always coming your way in the minor moments in life. I'll give you an example. I remember one time I was going for a walk and I'm just, minding my own business, just enjoying being out in nature. And I see this woman. Well, first I heard her. I hear this woman approaching me from off in the distance, and she's singing really loudly. Older lady, probably in her 70s. But she had a beautiful voice. And as I walked by her, she just sang without any fear of being judged. And she just walked by, and I heard her pass off, and I heard her off in the distance as we walked by each other. In that moment, I was like, wow, she's not scared to sing her song in life, to be as she is, exactly who she is, the authentic expression of herself in that moment. She felt like singing and she was going to sing. And to me, that was a teacher in that moment, because I thought to myself, well, am I singing my song in life? Am I really being the most authentic expression of myself? And it mirrored back to me where I wasn't that time, because I wasn't truly being the most authentic version of myself. There was things that I was holding back on out of fear or doubt or whatever. And I thought about that woman, and was she scared or doubtful? I'm sure maybe she was with some things. We all tend to have it, but she wasn't in that moment. And that inspired me. So that's just an example of how the teachers and the lessons are all around us if you open your eyes to them. And when you are ready, the teacher that you need at that time for your own ascension or whatever will be there for you. And I use words like ascension or elevation or carefully, because it gives this notion that we have somewhere to be, that enlightenment or inner peace or spiritual awakening is somewhere off in the distance when you do these things. And it helps, but you're already aware. You're like, it's like, imagine if you were dreaming at night and you, in the dream, the version of you in your dream thought to itself, oh, I need to wake up from this dream. I need to become aware. I need to do something. So in the dream, you're going to go off to and do some meditations or watch videos or books or whatever, just to realize that you need to awaken, that you're living in a dream. You've already realized that you're living in a dream. You just have to live from that place now. You don't need to go anywhere to awaken. It's within you right now. Life is showing you the way. So, the books that have helped me the most in life, The first book that I read that was a very eye-opening book was Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. This book was my first kind of experience with being able to separate myself from thoughts, separate awareness from thoughts. And it was a very good roadmap for giving myself the awareness that I'm not those things. To me, the basis of meditation and self-awareness and all of these things. So Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, was very, very impactful for me. And at the time when I was reading it, Oprah had him on as a guest on her podcast, Super Soul Conversations, and together they did a review of each chapter. So I read the book, I read each chapter, and then I listened to that podcast episode for each chapter, and it just added another element, a deeper element to really absorbing that material in that book. And that book almost was like a meditation for me when I read it. I was in no rush to finish it. I read it, and I'd be out in nature sometimes reading, and I would just read a sentence, and I would just sit and just be and practice it, truly practice what I was absorbing conceptually. Because having the concepts is powerful, but true understanding on a deep level that fills your whole being can only be acquired through experience. It's like, imagine if you read a textbook about how to shoot a basketball. You knew all the things about it. You put your one hand on the back, other hand on the side. You flick your wrist. All the technical stuff. You read about it, but you never shot a basketball. And then you have someone else who has never read a book about shooting a basketball, but they've been playing basketball for 20 years. Who has a greater understanding of shooting a basketball? I think the person who has actually played. Concepts, and the person who played, they probably got taught some of the concepts by a coach or whatever, but they put it into practice for 20 years, for years and hours, and they gained the understanding within themselves. Practical experience. That is the real thing that will help us evolve or ascend or live from the spiritual awareness that we are. The concepts will only point in that direction, will only point us in the direction of that experience. To really experience it, and to really understand it, we have to experience it and practice it. So, first book that I'd recommend is Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. The other book, or another book that I recommend to many people and was very impactful for me as well, and it's a book that I revisit, is The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And I recommend this book because it touches base with something that I think many of us struggle with in life. And it's this notion of surrender. Because I think, for myself anyways, when I used to think of surrender, I'm like, what does that mean? Do I do nothing? Do I just sit there and do nothing and not, it's just about manifesting? No. And in this book, and then the other thing I thought too, with the notion of surrender, was, well, nothing's going to work out then. It won't work out for me if I sit back and do nothing. And then over time, I began to realize that these profound paradoxes that, things like the more you let go, the more it comes. When you stop looking, you find it. The quieter you get, the more you hear. All of these deep, profound spiritual paradoxes that just ring true on a deep level. It's like it's speaking to a deep part of yourself that you don't even, that is beyond the ego. And it almost draws you in. So as I began to touch base with that part of myself, this notion of surrender became very interesting to me and fascinating. So I read this book, and he talks about his journey with surrender. I don't want to give the book away, but he talks about his journey with surrender, allowing life to be as it is, and where it takes him in life. And I think a lot of us are scared that we won't be successful, quote unquote, more money, material wealth, whatever, won't be able to look after ourselves if we are constantly gripping on, or if we're not constantly gripping onto life, trying to hustle, grind, force our way, take action, whatever. And in the book, he beautifully lays out his experiment with surrender to see where life would take him. Understanding the kind of the keystone of his outlook is he's not separate from God, infinite awareness, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, source energy. It's his ego and his constant thinking that was keeping him separate from it. And if he could then align with that consciousness, where would it actually lead him if it's actually not separate from him? And if the universe is always expanding, where would it take him in his life? So Surrender Experiment was another book that was very impactful for me when it comes to spiritual, this kind of a spiritual genre, if you will. Another book that I found impactful, a bit more superficial when it comes to spirituality, is Think and Grow Rich. This is basically a outline for manifesting, using your brain and using yourself as a tool to manifest that which you desire in life. I strongly believe in the power of manifestation, the law of attraction, all of these things. As Bob Proctor put it, it's like the law of gravity. If you drop something, it falls. Whether you want to believe in it or not, it's a universal law. The same thing is true with the law of attraction, the law of detachment, the different universal laws that there are out there. And there's another book that I'll talk about that talks about those. But Think and Grow Rich is a great book, timeless book, really, on understanding kind of the steps of mastering yourself to be able to manifest that which you desire in life. So that was another really good book that I would recommend. Another book that I've found to be quite impactful is The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. And it's a very small book. You could probably read it in, 30 minutes, less even if you're a quick reader. It's just a tiny little book that is just packed full of inspiration. It really spoke to my soul, if you will. So I like the book because it talks about these different laws of nature that, again, just rang so true to me in life. It wasn't about, just getting more money. It was about service. It was about living from this spiritual essence to live a fulfilling, purposeful, and successful life, And I found that very inspiring, because what I've really wanted out of life is to find a way to live from that spiritual essence from God and be able to serve people in such a way that allows me to make a living. And I think that is a real fulfilling life, both internally and externally. So the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success was another book that, I've come back to a couple times. There was other ones that I've read, but I don't want to list off like 20 books. If you want me to, drop a comment and I can speak more about some other books that I've read that have been good, but those are kind of the 3 main ones. The first two were the main ones that have really been impactful for me. These books spark this awareness or awaken something within myself that just helped me live in practice with awareness. So I didn't have to keep chasing more and more things. Because I said at the beginning, the more that we chase through trying to add more concepts, it's almost like it pulls us further away from that spiritual essence that we are. Until we can actually live in practice by walking the path that life is providing to us, God is providing to us, like that chess game, and use that as what is needed for us to grow. And sometimes books will be that. Sometimes videos will be that. But if we think that that is the start and the end of the path, we're always going to be looking for the next book and the next thing and the next thing to try and enhance this self-concept. The path is beyond that. So I hope this video helps. Those are some books that I would recommend if you're looking for some. I've got other recommendations too, but again, I don't want to overload you. So the main thing is to live in practice. You got the awareness. It's living from awareness, living from self-observation, mindfulness, slowing down, self-regulation, moment to moment. That is the most transformative thing that we can do. And in doing that, life begins to change because we change on the inside. It's like that scene in The Matrix when that kid bends the spoon with his mind. He was like, how'd you do that? And the kid said, well, it's because there is no spoon, which is to say that everything outside of you is an extension of your own self, appearing to be separate. And when you can change this internally, transform this through awareness, things outside of you begin to rearrange themselves and shift in accordance with this work, if you will. So, hope this helps, and I'll see you in the next video.